Hello, everyone. My name is Alexander Lucard, and I am a system administrator for Montgomery County. In today's training, we are going to look at how to edit shelter stays in the ShelterPoint module. Mistakes happen sometimes, and it's good to know how to fix those mistakes when they come up. For today's training, we're going to be looking at two emergency shelter programs. The first is the families, and the second is the singles. Now, just because we're doing emergency programs, that doesn't mean that the tips and tricks we're doing here today don't apply to other programs. Everything we learn in this module can be learned or can be used by permanent supportive programs, rapid rehousing programs, transitional programs, any program that uses the ShelterPoint module. So it's okay, but we're using emergency programs for the purposes of this training because they're in ShelterPoint every day, and other programs are only in there for the housing move-in date. This training assumes you've already had the housing move-in date training for ShelterPoint. If you are a permanent supportive or rapid rehousing program, then please refer to that if you need it. So we're going to go into ShelterPoint, and again, we're going to be doing emergency shelters here. We're going to pick Stepping Stones as our test program today. So we're going to choose Stepping Stones here. And again, with ShelterPoint, we have all these different buttons, but the only one we actually ever use is View All. View All does all of this stuff for us in one spot, so you don't need to worry about learning when you use update confirmation list, when you do a check-in reservation, when you do a transmit today's checkout list. You can do it all here from View All, so it's best to do it one button and only have to learn it once instead of breaking it down into these minutiae that can inevitably confuse you and create more errors down the line. We click View All, and here is a sample bed list. It's completely empty right now. And we're going to check in a family, but we're also not going to check it out 100% correctly. We're going to make some errors here so that we can see how errors are made and also how to correct them. So we're going to go to Unit 1, Bed 1. We want to fill in the first unit. Now we're going to click on the green check-in button here, right? Check in. And then we're just going to look up our test family, which are the Jetsons. And we're going to do a few letters from the first and last name, maybe 2 or 3 in the first name, 2 or 3 in the last name. Click enter. And we've got the head of the household here, George Jetson. We'll click on him. And we're going to check him in for July 6, 2021. I'm just going to make this 6 p.m. And here we can see the household members. When we're doing a family, we want to make sure that every family member has a check mark by their name. If they don't, they won't be checked in. We don't want that. We want all the family members that are actually going to your program to have a check mark by their name. But in this case, to make a mistake, we forgot to check Astro. And what that means is he won't be included as part of the family in your shelter stay or part of the program. And then we also want to make sure that with the unit assignment, that we put everyone in the same unit as George because they're a family together. So let's assign some units. We click the Assign Unit button, and we're going to pick Bed 2, Assign Unit, Bed 3. And we're purposely going to forget to assign the bed unit to Elroy. Now, this isn't going to really mess up his account in the same way that we are going to mess up Astro. He's still going to be in your program. He's still going to be connected to the family. He's still going to have his entry. He's still going to have his shelter stay. It's just he's going to be dropped into the overflow, which is unaesthetically pleasing or aesthetically unpleasing, sorry. And it's going to make it harder for there to really be a good visual flow. So this is a really minor error, but we're still going to do it to show you what it looks like. We're going to scroll down. We're going to hit Save and Exit. And here we can see that the Jetsons that have been done correctly are grouped together. There's George, Jane, and Judy, all there in Unit 1. But poor Elroy's all the way down here in Overflow. And Astro's even worse off because he's not in your program. You can't bill for him. You can't count him. He's not going to show up in reports. All because an emergency shelter did not put him incorrectly into this family program. For a non-emergency program, all this is going to do is mess up your housing move-in date. But because that is so vital to your program, it's still pretty important that you get Astro in at some point, preferably immediately. And we can also see that we have a group ID. This is your connected household. 114, 114, 114, they're all checked in together. And so Elroy, even though he's in an overflow bed, is 114 as well, which is good because that means that we've checked them in correctly together as a family unit. It's just we forgot to assign him part of Unit 1. So let's fix that now. We click on Elroy's name, and this is going to bring up his unit entry data. If we go down here, back to where we were on the previous screen when we checked the family in, you'll notice that Elroy cannot have his room changed. He's stuck in overflow. Well, that's because we actually fix it in a different spot. Scroll back up. Here's his unit name and number, overflow. We want to change that. So we're going to click assign unit, and that's going to pull up the list. There are 2 available beds in unit 1 where the rest of the Jetsons are. We're going to click on it. There is a bed 4. We hit select. And look, it's changed from overflow to unit 1, bed 4, which is fantastic. That's what we want. We hit save and exit. And there we go. Elroy is now in the same unit as the rest of his family instead of overflow, still part of the same group ID. Everything is great. So what do we do with Astro? Now, your first inclination with Astro might be, oh, let's just check him in. We click on the button and we do Astro Jetson, right? There he is. Then we check him in for 7/6, the same date as the rest of the family. And he's going to be in bed 5. We hit save and exit. But this is again wrong. Why is this wrong? Because look at what happened with Astro. Astro is not part of the group ID. He is not connected as part of the family. If you check him in this way, it is going to mess up not only Astro's account, but it's going to mess up their household. He's not grouped as part of the household now. If we go into Astro's account and we take a look at his entry exit, if you check him in that way, and we look at his account, he is now an individual in a family program. He was not checked in with the rest of his household. We don't want that. So let's do it the right way. Right now, 4 members of the family are grouped together and poor Astro is by himself. So let's go back now that we've seen the wrong way, and let's do it the correct way. We aren't going to click on the check-in button. What we're actually going to do is we're going to click on either George, Jane, Judy, or Elroy. Any of the family members, doesn't matter, but we're going to choose George out of habit because he's the head of the household. We go down here, look, we can't add Astro. It's not letting us assign a unit or check him in. What we need to do is check in additional family members. This is where you go whenever there is a new family member added into your program, either that you forgot at the entry, like the rest of the family that came in, or if they come in later, say a baby is born, or a child gets reunited with their parent. Maybe they were staying with parent 1, but now they've moved in with parent 2 who's in your program. We do check in additional family members, and now we can do Astro. So if Astro comes in on 7/6, like the rest of his family, you're good to go. We just hit save and exit. If we're going to say Astro comes in August, he gets there a little later than the rest of the family, which is okay. That happens sometimes. We hit save and exit. And then we just assign him his unit, just like we did when we fixed Elroy. We hit select, and there we go. Save and exit. And now we can see Astro is checked in correctly. He's still in bed 5 like the first time we did it, but we can see that he is part of the household because he has the same group ID of 114. See how they all have 114? That's great. They're all interconnected. And we can see the date in. The other 4 families came in on July 6th, but Astro came in on August 1st. And so that's how you would make the most common corrections to a family program. If you forgot to assign a unit, we've done that with Elroy. And if a family member just is forgotten to be added when the family first came in, you forgot to click that checkbox, or if they come in at a later date. The way to fix that is with both that we've done here, which is just clicking on the head of the household or other family member and choosing check in additional family members. Again, you do not want to check the green check-in box because that will put them in as an individual. They won't have the same group ID as the rest of the family. You have to click on a name and do check in additional family members. We want to be safe here and make sure that everything is correct. And that's all we have to do here in the family part of the shelter stage. Now let's go take a look at an emergency shelter. We're going to pick Rainbow Place. Now, Rainbow Place in real life is a all women shelter, but for the purposes of the test, I just grabbed a whole bunch of clients and threw them in. So this is both male and female. So don't worry about it. This is just a test. Now, let's take a look at some other common changes that you might have to make if you catch an error in ShelterPoint. The first is, here, this is an emergency shelter, and we can see that when we do this list, we're saying that these people are in this bed and this date. So in this case, Kenny Omega has been in bed 1 at Rainbow Place every single night since 6/1/2021. What we are doing with ShelterPoint is we are attesting, we are saying that with no doubt whatsoever, with absolute certainty, every single night Kenny was in this bed since 6/1. Today is 7/6. That means he's been in that bed for almost a month and a week. So same with Cole Cabana. We are saying that he has been in bed 2 every night since June 15th, 2021. And so we just have to remember, because it is a low barrier / emergency shelter, that you need to be updating this every night. So if a client comes and goes, comes and goes, comes and goes, you need to be constantly checking them in and checking them out, checking them in and checking them out, even if they're only there for a day. You don't want to say that a client is there on a night that they actually weren't. So don't just leave a client in for an emergency shelter. You have to check them out, even if they're gone for a single day. If they're there for 2 years straight, they leave for a day, you check them out for that day and they come back. You don't want to say that they were there that day if they weren't. And that's for a whole bunch of legal reasons. So we want to make sure that we have them in the correct bed and we have the correct date. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to fix a bed and also how to fix a date. So let's say Brandy and Chris Statlander are in each other's beds here. Brandy Rhodes is supposed to be in bed 5 and Chris Statlander is supposed to be in bed 11. Well, how do we fix that? If we click on Brandy and we go to assign unit, we can only do the beds that no one is currently in, 12, 13, and 14. And we're trying to get her into bed 5. So how do we do that? Right? Because Chris is already in that bed. We're trying to switch these two around. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to move Chris for right now. We're going to assign her to an overflow bed. Okay. We're going to scroll all the way down. Save and exit. We've moved Chris. We've got Brandy. And now that bed 5 is open. So we can put her in it. Scroll down. Hit save and exit. And now we can go back into Chris's account and give her that bed 11. So if your staff is just putting clients in willy-nilly, not actually making sure that this is a perfect match for the bed list of your program, you're probably going to have some really convoluted where you're moving people from a whole bunch of overflow beds, moving them all around until you get them in the right order. And we need to make sure we have them in the right order. We absolutely have to be sure that Brandy Rhodes is in bed 5 since April 28, 2021, every single night. Maxwell Jacob Freeman has been there every single night in bed 6 since 6/13/2021. We need to make sure that we have this correct and that we keep them in the same bed night after night until they leave. But now let's say we need to change the date, right? Let's say we take a look and we notice, oh, Christopher Daniels has a date of 7/4. He's actually been in there since 7/2. He actually was checked in on 7/4 and we forgot to change the default date. Remember, it always defaults to what today's date is. So maybe it was July 4th, you were checked in Christopher Daniels and you just forgot to change the date. It happens. You just go in, we click on his name, we change the date, we make sure that everything else looks right, the bed is correct. We hit save and exit. And there we go. And now Christopher Daniels has been in since July 2nd. And that's all there is to changing a date. It's really, really easy. The last thing I want to show you is just for visual purposes. Let's say you want to sort by alphabetical order. We've got all these clients and they're in different orders. If we go over here to sort by client and click sort, now they're all in alphabetical order by the last name, from Cabana to Statlander. Let's say we wanted to sort by the date they came into your program. We sort. Now we can see Brandy has been in there longest since April 28th, and Christopher Daniels has been there the least since July 2nd. And we can always go back to the bed. And now we're back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And that's really helpful. You'd be surprised how often you end up using this if you're looking for a specific client. It's really easy to just sort by this. Or if you wanted to see the date range. Being able to do things chronologically here in ShelterPoint can have a lot of different uses. And I just wanted to show you that quickly. But we've looked at different errors that can happen in both a family and a singles. These errors can happen in either one. I just wanted to do a little bit with each so that you can see what it looks like. But yeah, all the errors we correct in a family technically can be done in a singles program, and all the changes we made in the singles program can technically be done in a family program. And they can all be done in a permanent, supportive, rapid rehousing, transitional, bridge, whatever type of program you're talking about, as long as they use ShelterPoint. So that's all we've got for you today. We wanted to show you some quick ways that you can edit shelter stays in ShelterPoint if you come across any mistakes. And again, we have other trainings such as the housing move-in date, which is when you would use ShelterPoint for permanent, supportive, or transitional programs. I thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, you can also refer to the PowerPoint version of this training, or if you want to know more about when you would do shelter stays based on what type of program you have, we do have a training called Shelter Stays versus Entry Exit. That's a really helpful one if you're not sure about the workflow and what order you do entry exit or shelter stays in, because it does vary based on your program type. Again, thank you for joining me here today. I look forward to doing more trainings with you in the future. Have a great day.